Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Barber Shop. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Salute. Tonight, we are talking about something that I really want to chat a little bit more about. We're talking about defining gaslighting here on the Barber Shop on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, on the Going Bold Network. This is Going Bold Wednesdays. So I am going to, you know me, I'm sharing the show on a bunch of different platforms. So please just give me a second while we're sharing it. Today's been such a crazy day. I was just telling Cece, who went down below, that I've got a crazy headache. Just life is challenging. It's been an interesting, it's just been an interesting couple of weeks. With me going on, starting a new job soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I've been doing a lot more coaching, which is super exciting. I've got a couple of books coming out. New role. I'm starting to try to date a little bit more seriously and a little bit more intentionally. So it's been interesting. It's been a really interesting, season of growth for me. So I apologize if I'm talking a little bit more slowly than I normally would, but you know what? That's probably a good thing, CC. It's probably a good thing. So we've just shared it on all the platforms. I'm going to hit us on Instagram in a second. We'll be on Instagram for the next 10 minutes. So we are now live on Instagram. Tonight we're talking about defining gaslighting. What's going on with the network? Cece, I didn't even have time to talk to you today about what we've been doing, but our media kit is almost done. We've got everything's ready for some new talent. I've got some new shows scheduled. We've got some really exciting stuff going on over the next couple of weeks. So I'm telling you, if you are thinking about advertising on the network, you ought to do it now, because we will grandfather you in with your rates. I'm telling you, when we start to pick up more steam, the rates go up. So get a hold of that media kit. If you've got a business you want to support with, we're always happy to do that. But I want to chat with everyone a little bit tonight about defining gaslighting, what we're talking about. But you know what, as I always like to do, if you haven't been on my show before, I do like to take myself a moment of silence. It's silent prayer. You can just call it a moment of silence. If you are not a person of faith, that is totally fine. And if you don't know what I mean when I say a person of faith, I'm not a conventional Christian where I believe in all the political junk that goes on during church, but I do believe in a higher power. So before we get started, let's just take a quick moment of silence and make sure that everybody's on the same page and just thinking about somebody that could be important in your life. If you want to take it for yourself, great, let me know. I will take it for you as well. Okay, and we're good. Oh, awesome. Haley made it today. What's up, Haley? How are you? See a lot of other folks. Caroline is here. Awesome. See Erica here. See Alexis. Great stuff. Cool. So tonight we're going to talk about defining gaslighting. Now I want to jump right into defining gaslighting. We're going to talk about we always talk about movies and TV shows that have a lot of gaslighting involved with it. So I want to talk about what that looks like and how that looks. Let's read the definition of gaslighting. And y'all, if you've got some stuff you want to bring to the table, you know me, I'm an accountable dude. I don't speak for all men. I just speak for this dude at the table. So definition: manipulate someone, in parentheses, by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. Now that is where I think we leave out in with regard to the definition. We are manipulating someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity. Now I've got a couple of other websites that I want to bring in here, and then we're going to discuss the movies and that kind of stuff. Gaslighting is a form of manipulation that occurs in manipulative and abusive relationships. It is insidious and sometimes covert type of emotional abuse where the bully or abuser makes the target question their judgments and question their reality. Ultimately, the victim of gaslighting starts to wonder if they're losing their sanity. Now, I want to really be super careful about when we talk about gaslighting. That is an extreme version of manipulation, right? Why do I bring this up? Why is it relevant with regard to this conversation? Now, if you know me, and I'm transparent with everybody that I come across the table with, I actually was accused of gaslighting folks a couple of years ago, to the point where it was part of my cancellation. And this is not a self-serving kind of thing. It's come across the table again. Somebody brought it to my attention, and I said, you know what? We're going to define gaslighting. I've had a lot of growth over the past couple of years. What I did was definitely not gaslighting, but that's not, we're not advocating. We're not discussing that right now. What we are discussing is what is gaslighting. Okay, so we want to talk about what you should know about it, what's important when you're being gaslighted versus when you're just being invalidated, which is also crappy, right? But not gaslighting. And when you're being gaslighted, what you can do to gaslit, what you can do to combat that gaslighting, right? So first we want to start in with my favorite part of every show is when I bring in a couple of movies, TV shows, and I had some challenges bringing in some mainstream kind of movies and TV shows. So I want to, if you have some, let me know. Okay. So the movies and TV shows that I thought about were Riverdale, the TV show, Ma, the movie, Fractured, the movie, and then they threw in the movie Burnt, and I don't really remember who was gaslighting in the movie Burnt, but that's fine. Can I adjust the camera a bit more so the writing's not across my face? Oh yeah. Is that better? Is that better, Cece? I don't know. You want to see this? You want to see this face? Is that what's going on? So I want to talk about Riverdale is something that we just started. So my roommate Jackie, who I love to death, we're going to have her on the show at some point. We get into some deep issues. In fact, we get into such deep issues, Jackie and I, that I tell her, I'm like, I got to go into the other room, dude. I got to get some work done. Like, we're talking too much, and I love her to death. I mean, she's not all your soulmates are romantic soulmates, right? She's a great person. But she started watching Riverdale, and I see your comment, Haley. We'll chat about that in a second. But what she brings in Riverdale, because we're trying to watch as many Halloween things as possible around Halloween. And Penny, right? It was Penny and Polly, right? Is it Penny? Yeah, Penny, right? She is it right? The blonde is Penny, the one that's in love with Archie. She gets gaslit like you wouldn't. If you've ever seen the show Riverdale, she is gaslit like nobody's business. Her parents, every time she says something that she thinks is correct, her parents completely gaslight her, completely make her question her sanity. It's mind-boggling, right? I'm watching the show again, and I'm so angry for her that, because I know it's going to happen, right? I'm so angry for her that her parents, her own people that she's supposed to trust, right? Oh, it's Betty, not Penny. Betty, right? Thank you, Haley, and I'll go to your comment in a second. I'm so angry for her that she's being gaslit in such a way, because I know what's going to happen, right? Now, Haley says, what can we do if we have been gaslighting without even meaning to or recognizing that we are doing it? You can answer this after. I don't want to throw you off. No, I think that's great. What can we do if we've been gaslighting and we haven't realized that we're gaslighting? Well, and see, so my first question to you, Haley, would be, and I don't know the situation, so we could always talk offline, but my first question becomes, are you gaslighting or are you invalidating? Are you gaslighting, or do you not know what happened, right? So I don't know your situation, right? So let me answer your question. What can we do if we've been gaslighting and we don't, we're unaware of it? I guess be aware of of the facts, right? Be aware of reality, document it. And I would say that to somebody who's been gaslighting and who's been lighted, right? You need to document what's going on. Now, if you're at a point where you want to document activities and actions, the first thing that comes to mind is, are you in the right relationship, right? Because if the person that you're with makes you question your reality so much that you need to start documenting things, that could be a problem. Now, I want to throw in something that shows you the other side of that coin. I have severe, and when I say severe, I have severe ADHD. Okay, severe ADHD, and I'm also highly intelligent, like 1%. Okay, I've been doing research on this because if you, again, I'll call myself out. I'm not defending myself. I was told I was gaslighting a couple of years ago. Not only was I told, the whole internet was told. And I don't believe that I was. And I did a lot of research into what was actually happening. A couple of things were actually happening. I was mirroring a lot of behaviors that I saw, number one. But number two, this is super important. My ADHD paired with my level of intelligence actually uh, didn't help me recall facts, activities, and um, reality, like details of events that actually had taken place. And so I would argue incessantly about something that I believed to be true because I didn't remember the details, and then come to find that I was a little lost on some of the details. Was I gaslighting? No, I was stupid and didn't understand the details of certain things, right? But what you want to ask yourself is, are you gaslighting, or are you in belief that your reality is true? Now, I'll be honest, I think I was being gaslighted in certain cases. So that's why I was questioning that reality. It's really a challenging thing. So the bottom line is, if there's love there, in my opinion, if there's love there and you need to make sure that you savor that relationship and make sure that that relationship's in good standing, then document those things. And you know that you don't remember certain things. Document the events that are taking place, not because you want to catch someone in a lie, or catch someone being gaslit, but if you truly think there's love there and there's just a misunderstanding, I would say document those things so that you remember what the reality is, so that you're not gaslighting. That's my opinion. Now, unfortunately for Instagram, we have got to move over to TikTok, so we're going to be doing TikTok in a second. So you can catch us there. If you want to catch the whole thing, go over to YouTube or Facebook, just search in WGSN Gaslighting, and you'll see my ugly mug there, and you can watch us there. But I want to thank you all for your comments, and we'll see y'all over on TikTok. So as we're just clearing up to TikTok, feel free, throw some comments in the section, in our section, like, have some fun with it. Let me know what y'all are thinking. And again, I want to make sure that I'm accountable, and if I was gaslighting, keep me posted on what you think was happening. If the conversation you're having life-giving, think about, if not, stop, breath, analysis. I'm not sure if did I get those words right? Can you keep that up there, Cece? I just want to make sure. That I get. If the conversation you're having life-giving, think about it. Think about, if not, stop, breath, analysis. Okay, so I think what I'm reading is, if the conversation you're having, think about it. If not, stop, breathing out. So in other words, I think the notion that I'm getting from this is, stop and breathe and analyze about what's going on in this thing, right? Take things slowly. Is that what you're saying? Is not life is not If the conversation you're having is not life giving, meaning it's not. Let's see. Hold on. Let me think. Hold on. I'm still not sure I get that. Anyway, let me get onto TikTok for a second. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I don't mean to invalidate what you're saying. I'm just not sure. I'm gathering it right. So Mana says gaslighting has intent behind it. People who are gaslighting are trying to control. Yes. So I want to talk about that in a second, because that's typically what was said about me, and I want to talk about that. Let me get on to our TikTok, and we'll chat about that. And then we're probably going to take a break in a second too, right? Yeah, we're at 13 minutes. So Mana says gaslighting has intent behind it. People who are gaslighting are trying to control a person or situation. And then Victoria says, what are some examples of gaslighting? Haven't seen the movie shows you mentioned. Oh, so we want to continue on those shows as well. So some of the shows like Ma, Fractured, I don't agree with them when they say burnt, but Ma and Fractured were two shows in which, or two movies in which, they were severely gaslighting. In Ma was basically setting up situations. It's a horror movie. She was setting up situations to trap these children, and then basically going, what are you talking about, right? Getting them drunk, putting them in situations where they were hurting themselves or hurting each other, and then going, I'm not responsible. What are you talking about? And they're questioning their sanity, right? But severely manipulating that situation. I would say in Fracture, same kind of thing, right? You're questioning your sanity. Fracture is a great movie. What's his name? Anthony Hopkins. Questioning your sanity because he was so good at manipulating that situation. And to go back to your comment, Victoria, so that we can give a proper example. What are some examples of gaslighting? Here are some great examples. So I would use to use the TV show and movie kind of example. In the show Riverdale, Betty thought that her sister was pregnant, shipped off to this like insane asylum, that her parents, there was all these shady dealings going on, that they knew about her boyfriend being shot, like all these different things. And she questioned her father and said, did you kill her boyfriend? And the father's like, you're out of your mind, you're speaking crazy, you're talking crazy, you should be shipped off to. That is gaslighting. Now, I don't recall if he had killed her brother, but he killed a lot of people. That's gaslighting. Instead of saying, yeah, I did the thing that you are saying that I did, gaslighting is saying, you're out of your mind, this is what really happened. So that's what gaslighting is. So now back to Sharavia's comment, because I want to get this right. I mean, if the conversation you're having with someone is not life-giving, as in it is not bringing value to someone's life, then you need to stop, breathe, and analyze the situation. Oh, absolutely. 1000%. Yeah. And if you, sorry, I was multitasking, didn't read. No, that's okay. So what you're saying is, if you think you're being gaslit, and the conversation you're having, the relationship that you're having is not of value to you, I think what you're trying to say is get the heck out of there. But if you think you're being gaslit, and you're in a long-standing relationship where you're in love with someone, and truly there's love and loyalty and honor there, my suggestion is, if you're there for the long haul, then yes, document what's going on, so that maybe you're being gaslit, but maybe you don't know what's going on too. Like, I've been in situations where I literally didn't know the details of stuff, and I wasn't being gaslit. I literally didn't know what was happening, right? I've also been in situations where I knew exactly what was happening and I was being gaslit, right? But I didn't know the details. And so, I didn't know the details. And so someone's like, oh, see, you don't even know. You're crazy because you don't even know. You don't even know those details. No, that's gaslighting, right? And so we want to be super, what's the word? We want to be super aware, though, about, the difference between gaslighting and invalidating, between gaslighting and arguing, between gaslighting and not understanding the facts, or presenting, what do they call, alternative facts. Gaslighting is a very severe case, and to Mana's point, when you have intent to manipulate, that is when gaslighting comes into play. Your intent to manipulate is truly what makes gaslighting. So gaslighting is a technique that undermines a person's perception of reality. When someone's gaslighting you, you may second guess yourself, your memories, your perceptions, right? So here's a closer look at some of the tactics that folks use to gaslight. One could be that they're straight up lying to you, right? So they engage in gaslighting, they're habitual and pathological liars. Two is they're going to discredit you. And these are kind of also, we did a great show on something called logical fallacies a couple of years ago. And was it 2 years ago, 1 year ago? We did a great show on something called logical fallacies. And my favorite former president, Mr. Trump, if you're listening on the radio, I put a thumbs down, by the way. He's not, he's absolutely not. He was infamous for logical fallacies. So he would discredit you, spread rumors and gossip about you. He would distract you, right? With something else. He would minimize your thoughts and feelings, right? He would shift the blame, right? He would deny the wrongdoing. He would use compassionate words as weapons, right? He would rewrite history, right? These are the types of things that a gaslighter does. They're also very prevalent in what we call logical fallacies. And a logical fallacy, I mean, I'm not going to get into that because we did a whole show on it, but a logical fallacy is, so glad you clarified. I worried for a moment because I had looked away. No, I promise. It's absolutely not my favorite president. My least favorite anything. But I hope people don't turn it off because they hear that. But the same thing with logical fallacies is that, they're designed to distract, discredit, and create a situation in which you are questioning what's going on, as opposed to doing what you want to be doing, which is confronting about something that you want to confront about. And that's really important, right? It's really important to note that that's what's happening. And to Mana's point, yes, it's very important to note that there's an intent there. There's an intent there to manipulate you to make you question that reality, because there's an accountability issue. They don't want you to hold them accountable for whatever it was that you're trying to hold them accountable for. Now, we're going to be taking a break in a little bit. Cece, can we go a second or two over so that I don't lose my folks on TikTok? Can we hang out for another minute before we take our break? I think we can typically, but I don't want to ruin our break. Sure. Okay, cool. So I don't want to lose my TikTok folks. We'll hang out on TikTok for a couple more minutes and then we'll take our break. Now, again, so Evil Tomato says, my ex is an expert at gaslighting. And again, that's very possible. So let's see. Sometimes when I'm having an argument with someone we get lost in our feelings. We don't come through the facts. That's super important as well. There are so many times in which, I got into an argument recently with somebody that I care about. And I don't know if I quoted this, but this is what I tend to say when I get into an argument with people. It's the Maya Angelou quote, right? People will forget what you say. People will forget what you do. People will remember how you make them feel. And so oftentimes we do engage in some form of, I would say, a cousin of gaslighting, because, we want to be heard. We want to be, hey, Cecilia, how's it going? We want to be heard. We want to be, we have a feeling that we need to get out. And so the facts aren't as important as that feeling, right? So you can call me Janie. Oh, wait, hold on. Evil Tomato says, it gets to a point that they don't even know what the truth is. That's possible. Like, my truth is the truth. You can call me Janie. Even good people can gaslight if they're in denial about their behaviors. Yes. 1,000%. I 1,000% agree with that. What do they say in church? Love the sinner, hate the sin. I'm not a fan of that, but because I just don't like the way the church talks to people. But the point is, let's just use that for a second and say, you're not necessarily a bad person. You may have just taken a bad action, right? There are folks that have been gaslighting throughout, for example, the plus size community, and it's gotten to a point where it's really bad. We want to be heard so badly that we don't even hear what we're shouting. I love that. I'm a pastor and I hate that saying LOL, but I see the analogy there. No, believe me. And if you didn't catch the beginning of the show, I am a person of faith. I just talk about gaslighting. There are many churches in this country and in this world that are notorious for it. So I'm glad that we agree there. So I'm totally for you there. So at this point, we've gone on to minute 22 of our show. We're going to have to take a quick break, which means that on TikTok, we're going to have to go as well. But you can catch us on YouTube, on Facebook. Just search WGSN Defining Gaslighting. You'll find us there. I want to appreciate everybody for hanging out. You're watching WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. I'm your host of The Barber Shop, Dr. Christopher Salute. We are taking a very, very quick break to bring in some of our sponsors so that, somebody gets paid on this. And we will be back in a couple of minutes. So we appreciate you, and we will see you in a second. You are listening to The Barber Shop, and thank you for your stuff. Bye, everyone. And we're back. Good evening, everybody. My name's Dr. Christopher Salute. We are hanging out on the Barber Shop. This is the Going Bold Network under the Going Solo Media Network. And you are watching Going Bold Wednesdays. You're also watching the Barber Shop. Tonight, we are talking about gaslighting. We are defining gaslighting. I want to talk a little bit about my experience. I want to bring in some comments, and then I want to talk about a couple of websites that I found this week to talk to you about what the experts are saying about defining gaslighting, how gaslighting has been used. Now, Victoria says, sounds a lot like my workplace, more specifically the administration and managers. It's very possible that your managers are gaslighting you. That does happen often. I'm going to write that down and talk about that in a second. Your videos are making me realize that I am so used to being amused and emotionally abused, gaslighted, that I just expected from everyone. That's disgusting, and I am so sorry. Not just for your benefit, but I do offer coaching, both life and relationship coaching. So if that's something that you want to explore, we can do that. But no, seriously, that's terrible, and it's terrible how people treat each other. So I'm sorry about that. Or even seek out people to behave that way because it's familiar. Those neural pathways, right? Those things are gonna those tracks, right? Same way we go back to fast food when we're feeling badly, right? So I feel you on that. But it definitely, to touch on your comment, Victoria. And I don't want to invalidate you, Sage. I'll hit you in a second, but it can happen. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay, I've been in sales training situations where somebody has told me, train our sales staff this way, and I go, that's a lie. You're telling a customer that meeting is going to take an hour to sell them the timeshare or whatever it's going to take, and it takes 3 hours, and they go, yeah, but they expect that. Just lie to them. It'll get them to the meeting. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, that's gaslighting. They're and here's the best part. Is somebody gets to a timeshare presentation here in Vegas. Those are big in Vegas, right? Somebody gets to a timeshare presentation here in Vegas, and the rep who's selling them the timeshare goes, nope, we definitely told you it was going to be 3 hours. Are you out of your mind? I watched your rep over there tell them it's going to be an hour tops, and you're gaslighting them, telling them it's going to be 3 hours. That happens all the time. It happens when you've got a sales contract or you've got an employment agreement or whatever that says one thing, or they verbally tell you, don't worry, you're going to get your bonus, and you don't get your bonus, and they say, no, we never said that, right? That, depending on how severe, could be gaslighting. Now, that's different from invalidating, in which you say, I'm really sad about blah, 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 blah. And they say, well, you need to get over that. That's not gaslighting. That's just being an outright jerk and invalidating, right? So I think I've gotten everybody. Sage says, your videos are making me realize that I'm used to being emotionally and abused and gaslighted. It's possible, and you could seek that out. Part of my history and something that I've been thinking about is the fact that I've dated unstable narcissists. It's something that I've done. And so people go, well, he's one of those, all his exes are crazy kind of things. No, all my exes are not crazy. The most stable relationships that I've had over the past couple of years were with people who were not on the internet. They were nurses, they were teachers, they were whoever, right? And I'm friends with all of my exes. The 2 or 3 folks who were in the public eye were absolute narcissists. And I mirrored them, and then they called me a narcissist and said that I was this, terrible person on the internet. I sought that person out constantly because that's what I was used to. I was used to a very attractive narcissist. And so I'm not an all your exes are crazy kind of person. That felt comfortable for me, and it was challenging and exciting for me, and I continued to do that. And because of that, I created a pathway, and I created a demeanor in which people sought that in me, and they were able to target me and get me to be attracted to them. You, Sage, may be in a similar situation where you're doing that as well. And I'm not victim blaming you and saying you're seeking out these abusive people, but you may and not realize that's what you're doing, right? So I would take a look at, the best way to stop those neural pathways, the best way to stop those habits from happening, quit cold turkey, right? Quit dating for a little bit. When you re-engage in dating, set your standards for who you want to look to, and you'll probably be in a better shape. The same way I do this. Now, I'm not advocating for this because I have a problem with my eating. I'm a binge eater, and man, I'll get to your comment in a moment. I'm a binge eater. So When I cut carbs, because it's something that for me makes me feel good, and it is good for my body, for my blood type. When I cut carbs, what I do in order to cut those carbs is I usually do a fast or a cleanse for about 3 days or 2 days. And what that does is it stops my body from depending on that serotonin in which I crave that when I eat. I'm not saying this is a good thing. It's probably not good for my body, but it's the way that I need to do it. Because what happens is if I go from eating junk food, because what I wind up doing is eating real, just fast food, garbage for my body. It's just trash for me. And then I want to go when I want to eat healthy, high protein, high vegetable, that kind of stuff. And if I do engage in carbohydrates, it's a dark chocolate or a berry or something like that. I can't, because my brain is telling me to seek the serotonin, seek the good stuff, the stuff that I'm used to, the stuff that makes me feel good, but it doesn't. It makes me feel good for like a second, right? And so what I have to do is cut myself off from food. And then I can go in and I can eat the diet that I want to eat, because I've stopped my brain from depending on that serotonin. I'm not saying that you need to do that, or anybody should do that. What I'm saying is cut yourself off from that serotonin, cut yourself off from the dopamine that you get when you're in that relationship. Go cold turkey, go celibate for a week, a month, whatever, a couple months. And then when you come back to that relationship hunt that you're looking for, it's going to be easier, not easy, but easier to find what it is you're looking for. Now, I want to hit up Mana's comment, and you don't have to put it back up, CC, but you can if you want to. Trauma, mental illness can cause memory loss too, and so you also have to be careful you don't go too far and think everyone is gaslighting you because you can't remember. That's where trust comes in. I love that. I love that, because so often people say, I've been gaslit, and look, it's possible. If you've had one abusive relationship, it's likely you're going to have more than that, and statistics will tell you that, right? However, there are situations in which that trauma does dictate this gaslighting feeling, because we are so conditioned to think we are being gaslit, because that trauma or mental illness can cause memory loss. And I agree with that. Even if you forget the details, right? You could just forget the details of a specific situation, and therefore you do feel like you're being gaslit, and somebody's telling you, no, that's literally not what happened, right? But I want to get back to Mana's conversation about gaslighting and intent, because that is what had happened to me a couple of years ago, and it still happens to this day, where somebody tries to say, well, Christopher wanted to sleep with me, and therefore he said this, that, and the other thing. Let me explain something, and this goes on YouTube for like the rest of eternity, right? And I'm being serious. There's not a single person on this planet that I want to sleep with that badly that I would manipulate them. Okay. Not only that, I have such a weird relationship with intimacy, given what's happened to me and how it's happened over the past couple of years because of my cancellation. I wasn't big on physical intimacy then. I always say that my addictions are carbohydrates and affection. Sex to me is something that's to be cherished, and it's something that became an obligation. It became an addiction very briefly because of how obligated I felt to have it. So if you think I'm trying to sleep with you, you got nothing coming. Okay. I would much rather have pillow talk and converse with someone. To me, that is true intimacy. That's the intimacy that I want. And so when people try to guess my intention is when the word gaslighting comes in. They go, oh, he's gaslighting. He's saying things that aren't true. He's whatever, blah, 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 blah. I could have been lying. I probably wasn't. I was probably forgetting facts, right? But the intent there was never to manipulate, because I could give a crap about having sex with someone new. The amount of sex that I've had in my life is disgusting, okay? So to me, the next person that I want to sleep with, and I say this, I want it to always be my last. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work, but that's my true intention, right? And so you want to be very clear about what somebody's intentions are before you say that's gaslighting. So I want to talk about signs that you're going to look for when you're looking for gaslighting. And then I'm going to say it. I'm going to talk about what, there's 2 articles here from medium.com and mentalhealthathome.org. Is gaslighting overused? So, and keep the comments coming, 1000%. I'm all about them. Yes, Mana is awesome for sure. So signs to look for when you're being gaslit. You doubt your feelings and reality, 1000%. You try to convince yourself that the treatment you receive is not that bad. You question your judgment and perceptions. You feel vulnerable and insecure. You often feel like you walk on eggshells. Yes. You feel alone and powerless. You wonder if you are what they say you are. That was me 1000%. When I was with my ex during that whole cancellation thing, I was like, am I this monster that she says that I am and that they say that I am? Because she said I was. You're disappointed in yourself and who you have become 1000%. You feel confused. You worry that you're too sensitive. Yup. You have a sense of impending doom. Yup. You spend a lot of time apologizing. Yep, I was apologizing for things I didn't even do. You feel inadequate always. You second guess yourself. You assume what you want. You assume others are disappointed always. You wonder what's wrong with you. You struggle to make decisions because you distrust yourself. Those are signs that you could be being gaslit. Okay. And I tell you that just from the experts. This comes from verywellmind.com. And I also say that as somebody who's experienced gaslighting and somebody who's been accused of gaslighting. Okay. So that's super important. Now, look, I'm going to jump into this because this is the part where I'm going to say some controversial stuff, and I hope you call me out on it. I hope you hold me accountable. I've got 2 articles over here. The minute I Googled gaslighting, these came up. From medium.com, is gaslighting becoming an overused word? And then mental health at home, is the term gaslighting overused? So I'll jump into what medium.com says. This article comes from Ryan Fan in 2020, so it's fairly recent. Okay, but he says gaslighting as a term has been overused by George Simon. George Simon is a psychologist and best-selling author, and I want to jump into a couple of things that he says. Let's see. Hold on. Where'd it go? Gaslighting is commonly used in the form of romantic relationships. Wait, hold on a sec. It serves us to remember that gaslighting is a specific form of structured abuse. It's not a convenient umbrella term for all mendacious or unpleasant behavior. It isn't gaslighting every single time someone lies or makes excuses. That is so important to really focus on. I want to say that again, okay? That it isn't gaslighting every time someone lies or makes excuses, because gaslighting is serious. Okay. It is super, super serious. Okay. Manipulation is super, super serious. It's not gaslighting every time someone lies. They can be a liar, a cheater. They can make excuses. They're not gaslighting you. Here's another quote. This is from Samantha Field. I'm becoming convinced that gaslighting is going to lose its usefulness because people are casually misusing it. There have been a few times over the last year even where I've seen people use gaslighting maliciously. That's super important as well. And that's similarly what happened to me. Okay. I don't know if you want to put these when you close, make sure. Oh, yes, of course. That's from Cece. So, Cece, I don't know if you want to put these up, and you can put Sage's up as well. Gaslighting is a long-term behavior. I think people jump to use it when they feel like their feelings are being invalidated or disagreed with. I want to jump into the next article, and I will. I'll tell you about that in a second. And then Sage says, I don't know what cancellation thing you're talking about, but dang, that all hits close to home. I super appreciate that. Look, I wasn't an angel either. I did a lot of crappy stuff to a lot of folks, but gaslighting was not one of them. Victoria says, well, time to find a new job. We've talked about that for sure. Let me jump into another expert article. Now, this article actually has a picture of this movie called Gaslighting. And it's a movie that I wasn't familiar with, so I couldn't use that movie, but it's an old movie with Charles Boyer, Ingrid Bergman, Joseph Cotton talking about gaslighting. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, here's where they talk about one of the first headings on here, pop psychology. And this is something we need to be aware of, okay? Pop psychology is super important because pop psychology is when we, as non-clinical psychologists, start using psychological phrases. Sociopath, psychopath, right? These are phrases that should not come out of your mouth unless you have a clinical definition, right? And you're clinically trained, right? Now you can say there are sociopathic behaviors that I think might be happening, or I think that's happening. But let me explain how, to me, I am a PhD in psychology. I am not a clinician. I'm what you call a psychology practitioner because I don't have a clinical degree. I've got an organizational degree, which doesn't have clinical background and clinical training. So even I don't use those phrases. But as somebody who respects the field and has a PhD in the field, this is how severe it is to me. Calling someone a gaslighter, a sociopath, a narcissist, which we've done as well, a psychopath, is akin to when somebody is weak and saying they have AIDS or HIV, they have cancer, right? Because you've seen some symptoms of that. You might say to someone, and I'm sorry, that is very controversial, and I'm sorry that it hits that way, but that's how serious it is, because these are clinical definitions. Okay. You can say, if someone is exhibiting symptoms of something, you may say, as somebody who cares about you, I love you and I want to get checked out. It looks like you might have symptoms of cancer or HIV or AIDS or whatever. I've read about it and I want you to see a professional, right? You can say to someone, I think that they are gaslighting me and I want you to see a therapist about that. I think that you've got some narcissistic tendencies and I want you to see a therapist about that. That is somebody who's clinically trained, either a PhD or an MD, who can give you a better understanding of what's going on. But, and I'm probably offended somebody by saying that, and I apologize. But that's how serious it is for me. Okay. Now, but we use this pop psychology because we've got these phenomena going on that we just want to label, and we also want to sound like we know what we're talking about. This article here from mentalhealthhome.org, there's a risk that everyone's using their own definition, whatever that might happen to be, and a lot of things are being labeled a certain way despite being entirely different phenomena. And the internet is labeling a whole lot of stuff as gaslighting. So they jump into what is getting mislabeled as gaslighting. Okay. Number one, invalidating people's experiences of reality. I suspect, this is what they say, I suspect very few of us are mature enough to be able to fight with people close to us without throwing some invalidation in along the way. It happens, right? But if we're conflating invalidation and emotional abuse, that ends up minimizing the experience of people who are actually being abused. Oh, thank you. Because this is what happened a couple of years ago. And the people who did come to my defense said, do you know what you're saying? You're saying that this man did these things he didn't do. And in doing so, you are actually invalidating when it actually happens, right? People invalidate others all the time. Telling someone with mental illness to just choose happiness, for example, invalidates their reality. Invalidation feels shitty, and it can certainly be a part of emotional abuse, but that doesn't automatically make it abuse in and of itself, which I freaking love. So there's one. Issues of infidelity. Okay, is a modern example to mirror gaslighting. Let's say your wife, I'm actually changing some of the language because it says wifey thought hubby, and I don't like that. A wife thought that a husband was cheating because he seemed distant and asked him and he denied it. Is that gaslight worthy? If he is in fact cheating, couldn't he just be trying to cover his butt, they say ass, and avoid trouble? He's not trying to convince her that she's insane. He's trying to get away with having his bit on the side without having to give up an easy life at home. Now, what they go on to say, now, does this make this man a good person? Well, let's forget if he's a good person or not. Does it make his actions good? No, they're not good actions. Does it make him gaslighting? No. Now they go on to say, I would think a gaslight-worthy issue would be more like if she saw racy, sexy texts and then he deleted them and denied that they were ever there because he wants a divorce and wants to convince a judge to give him a better settlement because his wife's accusations are crazy talk or something along those lines. That would be gaslighting. Now, he could be lying to himself and thinks that having drinks after work with his hot coworker is totally fine and that those racy, sexy tests are just teasing and totally fine. So there's, some gray area, they say. Individual versus collective gaslighting. Emotional abuse in gaslighting happens on a one-on-one basis. However, the Gaslight Express has expanded the term to apply to various broader social contexts, like in politics, like with racism, those were the two. Okay. So these are the experts that say, look, it's possible that what's happening is really shitty. Okay. Let me explain. The things that just happened in that article are crappy, right? Racism ain't good. I hate it, right? But you can't gaslight an entire crowd, right? You can deny and be an asshole about it, right? But that doesn't fall under the umbrella of gaslighting. They specifically said, so they say racial gaslighting seems to me like an unnecessary detour from the actual problem, which is just straight up racism, right? If a police force is denying accusations that they're racist or that systematic racism exists, what's more likely they're trying to convince people of color that they're crazy because they want an excuse to haul them off, or they're just sufficiently racist, right? So what that says to me, right, is that when we call things gaslighting because we want to make that impact about gaslighting, in this particular case, no, that's straight up racism. Call it what it is, because racism is shitty and terrible, right? So I think that's super important to talk about, right? So now, Sage, I don't know if you want to put some of these up, CC. And sorry, I don't know. I like came into this CC so tired. Now I'm like so awake. I need to like chill here. Do you want to put up some of these, or can I just read them? CC might have gone for a bathroom break, which totally happens. Let me read a couple of them. So Sharavia says people want a label to validate their feelings. It hits. Sage says, okay, let's read. Playing devil's advocate. Okay, but with that thought process, couldn't a gaslighter just say that they didn't intend to manipulate someone into thinking they're crazy to avoid that gaslight label? Yes. And that is where gaslighting, that's, I think, and she says just playing devil's advocate in the next comment, that's, I think, where there's this gray area, right? So you don't know somebody's intentions, and that's super important to take note of. I guess my answer to that would be you could be right and you'll never know. And so yeah, it's gaslighting-ish, right? The second part of that is, when we use a phrase like gaslighting, we're usually in a pretty heated conversation with someone, and I would hope that we're having heated conversations with people we know well enough to know what their intents are. And if we don't, then it's hard. There's no easy answer to that. So I applaud you for kind of stumping me on that, because I agree with you, right? It's possible that we don't know somebody's intent. That said, I don't like to guess people's intentions. I do it often, and it gets you in some hot water. So it's a challenge in that regard to know what somebody is intending on, right? So that's really important. So those are kind of the things that I think are really important to think about. I guess I want to hit that for a second, because that's super important. I guess what I would say to you in that regard is, you've got somebody who is saying that they didn't intend to manipulate somebody into thinking they're crazy to avoid the gaslight label. I guess what I would say to you is, how well do you know that person? And is that person of good integrity? And do you know them well enough to... So my easy answer to that is, put your guard up more often and don't allow somebody in early enough until you know their integrity is sound. Is that always easy? No, because some people are good at, but we did another episode a couple of months ago on defining narcissism, and it's only like 200,000 people in this country are narcissists. So if you've got a narcissist on your hand, yeah, they're probably gaslighting you. But if you don't, they're probably just being a jerk, or they're probably forgetful, or they're probably stupid, or whatever, So like, I don't want to say give them the benefit of the doubt, but you know what? If you're questioning your sanity for a second, if you're questioning that person's intentions, here's what you do. Get out, because the intimacy ain't that great. And if it is, you'll find it elsewhere. You know what I mean? So I want a couple of folks here, Sharavi and then Mana. We'll do Mana's first. An abuser is always going to deny that they are abusive. If someone is being abused and tries to confront them, they're of course going to say, well, if I did do this, you made me, and that's not me. Right. So that's super important. For example, Mana knows me well enough to know that I'm super accountable, and I'll literally ask someone, hey, did I do that? I'll ask, like, did I do that? And sometimes it's a yes, and oftentimes it's a no, and they go, no, you didn't do that. And I go, okay, cool. Because felt like I did that, that's when you don't have a gaslighter on your hands, because they're asking, seriously, hold me accountable if I did that, right? So then Sharavia says, in the age of Google, CC says I'm rare. Thank you. You're rare, like a fine steak. Sharavia says, in the age of Google, I didn't mean to call you a steak, but I meant it in a good way. In the age of Google, we all feel we can diagnose. The mental health world is just messed up. It's not only messed up. Here's the problem: is that I made the comparison, and please forgive me for saying it so crassly. I made the comparison about cancer or something like that. Somebody else did that. Mitch Hedberg did that a couple of years ago before he passed. He said, he did it in his like great voice. We get so mad at alcoholics, be like, oh, Mitch, you're an alcoholic. You got to fix that. And we get mad at him versus Mitch, you have lupus. Nobody gets mad at somebody who's got lupus. But, he made a good point. Alcoholism is it's a medical problem. It's an issue, right? It's an actual symptomatic issue, and it's clinical. And so we get mad at people for being alcoholics, and we need to be more empathetic, right? Or sympathetic at least, because they can't help it. They need treatment. We don't get mad at somebody for having lupus, right? And so it's the same thing. We think we can clinically define alcoholism. We can't, right? What we should say is you need to go seek treatment for what I think might be. We can say the alcohol you're drinking is seriously impacting your and my life. And when that happens, you could probably take a bet that it is alcoholism, but you know what? Let the doctor make that diagnosis, right? So that's super important. I want to just do a quick recap on what we chatted about, and then I want to make sure that we go over a couple of quick announcements and then get us out of here. But I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that gaslighting is not prevalent. It's not real. Okay. In fact, real quick, I love this. The term gaslighting comes from the 1938 play by Patrick Hamilton, known in America as Angel Street, and later developed into the film Gaslight by Alfred Hitchcock. Okay. In the suspense film, the manipulative husband tries to make his wife think she's losing her mind, right? That is what gaslighting is. So it is prevalent. It is a thing, but it's important to note that it's not all encompassing. It's not an umbrella, right? They give in our recap, I want to talk about what they give as some really great advice, because to be honest, it's better than the advice I'm going to give you. Number one, gain some distance. If you feel you're being gaslit, gain some distance. It can be helpful to take a step back from the intense emotions that gaslighting can evoke. Because again, we talk about these arguments and these emotions that take place, the feelings that are occurring when you feel you're being gaslit. But those feelings can also occur when you feel as though you're being invalidated, when you feel you're not being loved properly, all that kind of stuff. Save the evidence, because gaslighting can make you question yourself. Save the evidence, document things. Yes. Set boundaries. Boundaries tell others what you're willing to accept in a relationship. Get an outside perspective. Yes, but I'm going to counter that with the outside perspective is only going to get your version of the story the same way that person's going to get an outside perspective, and it's going to be their version, right? And then lastly, this is what I always say. If you feel like you're being gaslit, if you feel like you've got to question everything, if you feel like this is an emotional abusive kind of situation, end the relationship. End it. Get out of there. Because whatever you want to call it, I don't care if you want to call it gaslighting, manipulation, lying, stealing, cheating, or if you want to call it the ABCs, okay? If you're in pain, get out of there. There's almost 8 billion people in this world. You'll find somebody else to hang out with, okay? You'll find somebody else who likes your brand of cola. So get out of there and put yourself in a situation where you're not there anymore. Right. And you may go back to it with a fresh perspective and go, oh, shoot, I wasn't being gaslit. I was overreacting or whatever I thought I was. Or you may go back and go, that was definitely gaslighting. And that's fine. Great example for me. I ended a relationship a couple of years ago because she thought that I was being unfaithful. Come to find, she was messaging with like 2 people that I knew very well and wanted me to be friends with them. And she was messaging them to get dates. And I'm like, who's gaslighting here? You know what I mean? Like, get out of here. Found that out later, So it happens. But thank God I was out of that relationship long enough that I can hear that in a way that validated my already sound belief that I thought I was crazy, right? I want to talk about a couple of things, and I want to make sure that we get out of here on time. Of course, as always, right? This show is being brought to you by the Whimsy app, by That Professor Life and Bold Solutions Life Coaching, and by Bold Media, which is, of course, a part of Bold Holdings. We own Bold Magazine, Fabi Plus Magazine, and Strutter Magazine. I want to talk about something super exciting, and then I'll hit that. Let's hit that question first. Agreed. The bottom line is valuing yourself and your time enough to love yourself first. Amen, Sage. I love that, right? But I want to talk about something super exciting that's going to happen on November 10th. Myself and the rest of the Men's Going Bold Network are going to do, I believe we're going to try for a 4-hour-long special show that we're going to break up into our segments. And the show is going to be called Men Are Really from Mars. What it's going to talk about is just the dichotomy and the cross section of men who are just, are navigating this world of dating and the differences between men and CC, of course, yes. And we're going to try to get our fourth host. I know Neil and I are going to do it as well. It's, we're talking about the men navigating this world of dating, the challenges that they face, the mistakes that they make, the missteps that they make, all those things that go into communication issues and stuff like that. And I really want to stress upon this when I say this. Men, we are truly from Mars. There are so many times you'll have talk about gaslighting. You want to question your reality. You and a woman can tell the exact same story, and you're telling it totally different, and they're telling it totally different. And it's not gaslighting. It's what you think actually happened, because men are crazy, right? They're out of their minds, right? And so we want to have a show called Men Are Truly from Venus. It's going to happen, or Men Are from Mars. It's going to happen on November 10th. Tune into us. I want you to bring your comments. I want you to hold us accountable. Bring your stuff. Yell at us if you need to. And I don't mean that in a, I'm not trying to invalidate, knock some sense into us. Bring your girlfriends, bring your boyfriends, bring your non-binary friends, bring everybody. Let's talk about it. Let's get the stuff on the table. Hey, I want to really thank everybody. You all brought some really amazing comments to the show here. Every week this show just truly just gets more and more fun. I learn more about myself. I will say without doubt that I'm so thankful to people for calling me out on my stuff, for also validating the things that I know are going on, and for bringing your own thoughts to the table so that I can help and learn and grow with you. It's just truly incredible. Sharavia says, because the population is finally seeing mental illness as a medical issue, but the world is not caught up with supportive treatment. I love that. That's incredible. With that, I'm going to say you have just watched WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You've watched the Bold Men's Network, which is Bold Wednesdays. I'm your host of the Barber Shop, Dr. Christopher Salute. You are an incredible group of folks for coming on and hanging out with us. Thank you so much for tuning in and for bringing your vulnerability. That was Defining Gaslighting on the Barber Shop, and that is our show for the night. Cut.